Hogstye.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hogstye. It is Alex, it is Dave, it is Steve. We have a jam-packed show. I'm super excited and energized. I went to training camp, which really got the old juices flowing. My old, free swag juices. Because let me throw these on, all the free swag that I got. I got
What
some
we couldn't see. Oh, so the
sunglasses.
team gave you those?
The
Oh, look
team
at
gave
that.
out sunglasses. I got a new lanyard. I got for my work ID there, so it's free lanyards. Uh, Here's what they gave that was smart: sunscreen. They gave everyone sunscreen. It's
And let me
100 and
just-
something degrees out. That's good. Good move.
Let me just say we had to do this mainly because I forgot to apply for credentials for training camp this year.
But it paid off. Oh, and lip gloss. Commander's brand lip gloss.
Well, see, if you recall, they denied us last year, probably because of me. And
and the pandemic stuff was still playing into it.
well, that's true, but yeah. But this year,
And
with the new owner-
besides the only pods and stuff like that they were allowing on there at that time were just all the raw pods anyways. It was
well, yeah, and that's clearly not
Regardless.
us. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we were always way too honest for that. We were never.
You guys know who you are.
yes.
Yeah, you guys out there were never down the middle and fair and value. We've always been that, to be fair. But I meant to do, and it just, the training camp totally slipped up on it. Slipped in, it just got away from me this year. So that's why we didn't apply. We'll do it next year.
Yeah.
That's why Alex had to go sit with the great unwashed.
Hey, I don't mind it. I showed you guys. I don't know if I tweeted it out. Where did I put my hat?
If you did, I didn't see it, Alex.
I got my old Hogstye hat signed
Yeah,
by
I
Mr.
saw
Mike
that
Sellers. So that was cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's cool.
Did anybody recognize you as the famous Alex Z's from the
No.
Hogstye?
No one recognized me at all.
Your groupies weren't there?
No, my groupies were not there. I did get a text from one of a guy who does listen to our show, Mauricio, who's he is not my barber, but he works at where I go to get my haircut. And anyway, he texted me. He's like, "Hey, you went to camp. Tell me everything I need to know about getting in and getting out, and all that kind of stuff." So my groupies went later, is what I'll say.
See, but Alex, you have actually been recognized in public before.
I have. That was years ago, though.
I thought it happened a couple times.
It happened 2 or 3 times. Yes.
Yeah. That was back before there were 100 podcasts.
Right. Back when we were the one. Well, it also helped that I was wearing a Hogstye shirt everywhere, sporting event related at that point. So
we were
Now,
one of
as
about
far as a
4
crowd, how
shows.
big were they truly when you're going through there and everything?
So, I'll set the whole thing up. I'll do this narrative story structure. Camp started at 9, right? So for me, I gotta leave. It's an hour drive to get to Ashburn from where I'm in DC. I left probably 7:15, 7:30 because I didn't want to get there, super early like some people do. Drove. First off, if you don't ever go to Ashburn, it's confusing as heck to try and find anything because, it's sprawl land out there. So nothing's close. I put in Dulles Town Center in my GPS, and my GPS took me to the wrong place. That's how remote Ashburn is, that Google doesn't know where shit is there.
How many dirt roads it take you down onto?
It took me to a town center 2 miles from where they actually wanted people to park. So
Looking like a true city guy. Can't find his way around the country.
yeah, it's not the country. It's suburbia. I can find my way in country fine because I spend a lot of time up in those mountain country areas. So
Us suburbanites would have gotten there just fine.
I'm sure because you only have one place to go called a town center, usually in the suburbs.
I don't think you've been in many suburbs.
I grew up in the suburbs. I hated
Continue,
it. That's
please.
why I left.
Everybody has their flaws.
Yeah.
I was
so
talking about
anyway,
you, not the suburbs.
Well, get there. There's some hillbilly playing country music in the back of his truck with speakers. Steve, you would have appreciated it. He's like, this is a song I wrote about the Redskins in the 80s. And he's playing some crappy song about Art. He's just naming Redskins,
It's not exactly Led Zeppelin.
It is not Led Zeppelin. Also, he's doing my favorite thing, whereas you're playing, but you're still playing to a track because you're not that good. That's always
Well,
great.
it's more that because he doesn't have a band.
Just
If
play
it's-
your guitar, man. It's fine. We're all
Now,
cool.
was it more than one? Was it drums and bass, or was it multiple guitars?
He was just playing his guitar, and the thing had guitars in it as well.
Okay, well, to defend this guy who I didn't see, there are such thing called looper pedals, and so you set out. You can. I don't have one, but I've contemplated getting one. But you can play the rhythm track, and then the pedal will record it, and then
Right.
it's a foot switch, and then you can play it'll output what you just recorded, then you can play over it. So that
Yeah,
might have
yeah,
been what he's doing.
I've seen that. No, he wasn't doing that. He was literally playing to like a
Oh,
CD.
just a track. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm gonna say CD.
Now, is this
he's
guy a
old.
paid person, or is just
Nope,
some butthead
I don't.
in his truck decided
I hope
to
not.
come
I hope they
play?
weren't paying for that. I will say once you get there, getting in was pretty easy because they had tons of shuttles. Security was pretty quick, and gentle. I'll say they were very gentle.
It'd be more fun if they weren't.
Those are one or two fists.
Yeah. Just a thumb, Dave. Just a thumb. When I got there were probably about 7,000 people there at that point. It's always hard to count how many people at a training camp because you're also spread out around the edges, and the stands were completely full right away or already by the time I got there. It was not too bad of a day weather-wise, which helped. So I think the team said they were guessing 10,000 were showing up. I think that's probably about right. And it was just good practice. Defense won the day. I'm sure Dave probably heard and saw our rookie cornerback. He had a very nice pick on Sam Howell. It was an ugly throw though. The one thing that I noticed, and it's been mentioned by other people, if you go back and watch highlights on that the team puts out, they don't put the quarterback throwing the pick. They just put the pick in the highlights.
Yes,
which is
they
very
cut the
weird.
Quarterback out. Yeah, it is very weird.
The reason Hal threw that pick is I think it was Chase Young put his hand right in his face, and so Hal was like just throwing it away kind of thing. And there were like 4 interceptions that throughout the day. Fromm threw one of the worst ever. He threw a ball right to some 4th string safety at one point. I think he forgot what color his team was. Like no one else was there. That's the only thing it could have been. He's like, that guy's down there. Oops.
Well, I mean, look, I've said this in this week's column. You can't take too much away from quarterback play in these early stages, especially young guys like Hal. I mean, the odds are against Sam Howell panning out, for sure. But if Washington is sure about the guy, and it sounds like they are, I personally think that ought to make it an open competition. But if they're sure about the guy,
they were all getting a lot of reps.
Give Sam Howell as many reps as possible. If he's your guy and you want to try it, give him every rep.
Mm-hmm.
Every rep you can within reason, because he's going to have moments like that. Crappy throws that Emmanuel Forbes intercepts. That's going to happen. It's going to happen during games. Washington historically has been horrible in developing quarterbacks, and Ron Rivera might be the worst of the bunch. Mm-hmm. That guy has no patience at all with quarterbacks. He hasn't at all. And I mean, the only way to build a team is to have a franchise quarterback. And the only way to have quarterbacks, even Peyton Manning wasn't that good in his first year. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You got to give these guys a chance to develop. And Rivera's been just horrible with it. So my plea to him is, if Sam Howell is your guy, fine with me, but give him the entire season to play. Yeah, and ride out the bad parts.
I think the one saving grace for Hal is Bieniemy, because Bieniemy is going to make that call. Mm-hmm. And if Bieniemy has learned anything from Andy Reid, is that once you have the guy that you want and the guy that you're going to focus on, you're going to give him as long of a leash as possible. And that's what Hal is getting right now. And those two are creating a really good chemistry with each other. And So, and it's a very intense practice too. I'm sure you could speak more to that, Alex, in terms of how Bieniemy is on the offense and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, without question. I mean, we've been reading about it, but seeing just how Bieniemy has these guys hustling, getting in and out of the huddles quickly. He was visibly not happy with the O-line play the day I was there.
There's a shock.
But yeah, they couldn't block anything. They were struggling all day.
In another news, water is wet and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sun is shining.
I think every good play you saw from the offense, it was mostly the short stuff. Like Sam Howell completed every, short to mid-range pass and 10, 15 yards or under. But they didn't have time to set up the long stuff. All his long balls were terrible just because he was rushing them from what I saw. Now, it's only practice, so you don't really panic about that. But it was something I noticed. The other thing I noticed when I was watching some special teams stuff, and I know I'm the only one who gets fascinated by it.
We're going to get to special teams as position group breakdown later.
Yeah.
Actually, this one right here should excite people anyway.
Yeah. So, what, the special teams breakdown or what I'm...
Well, you already say, if I think you're going to say what you're going to say about what they're doing with special teams there.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're doing some new drills, which I thought were interesting. One of them was... So, first off, they're having the punt returners practice catching one-handed, which was wild. Dotson was one of the guys who I noticed right away was in there with the kick and punt returners practicing. Milne was terrible looking. He fumbled guys are lobbing balls, not like actual punts, just to kind of get them. And Milne couldn't even catch that, which was pretty depressing.
It's not that he can't catch. He's not dynamic.
No, he's
not. He doesn't really have the ability to find lanes, hit them, outrun these guys, outmove these guys. He's just kind of, the McDonald's of returners.
Yeah. He was fumbling one. But yeah, they were doing this one drill where they're punting balls and throwing. You remember the Jim Zorn giant rubber balls that he would throw at the quarterbacks? They were throwing
vaguely.
those at. You don't remember that back in the day? Jim Zorn would throw giant balls at Jason Campbell to try and distract him back in the day. They're doing that to the punt returners in practice to simulate, you got to dodge this to pretend it's a person. It was very funny to watch.
I think, and we're going to get to this, but did you specifically see Casimir Allen in this drill?
I did, and he stood out.
He's the guy who's kind of here to take an opportunity to be the returner.
And this is the part between him and Antonio Gibson. I was kind of leaning towards what you were probably going to start talking about with those two guys.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're definitely the most dynamic. If I were putting money on it, those are going to be your guys. And one of those two will end up being the primary returner. I worry about Allen because it reminds me a little bit of Brandon Banks, just how small he is.
Brandon Banks was a damn good punt returner. They shouldn't have gotten rid of him.
Well, after he got stabbed, he was never the same. But
that tends to happen. But I mean, he had a whole career in the CFL as a returner and did very well.
Yeah.
You have to also remember Darren Sproles too. Darren Sproles was a beast on returns.
Yeah, he just got to be too valuable. You can't risk a guy like that.
Darren Sproles was a bit different though, because even though he was 5'8", 5'9", he was stocky. Casimir Allen is more like Banks and very lean. I think they say he's 185. I don't.
I mean, you can't worry too much about that kind of thing though.
I know.
I mean, you just gotta let him play. And okay, I have Casimir Allen at 5'9", 175.
5'9" sounds right, but when you see him on the field with these other guys who are 6'2", 6'3", everywhere,
he looks like a shrimp.
Yeah, it does. Overall impressions, intensity was there. Defense was playing great on all the drills. I will say, as much as I do want Sam Howell to get the shot, Jacoby Brissett looked pretty good. When he throws the ball, it's a perfect spiral almost every time. He throws some really nice darts. And again, same issue as I saw with Sam Howell. The deep stuff, they just didn't have a chance to complete it. But that, I think, is an issue with the line.
I think there's no debate. I mean, Jacoby Brissett isn't a Hall of Famer or a Pro Bowl or anything, but he is a solid professional, quality NFL quarterback. And if you want to win now, like today, now you go with Brissett.
Right.
If Ron Rivera wants to develop a guy for the future and take a chance, then it's Howell. But I mean, Sam Howell is a risk. No matter what the fans say, Sam Howell is a humongous risk. And they can take the risk if they want. It may cost Ron Rivera's job. All my point is that if you're going to do it, just do it. And give it to Howell and be done with it. And I think the play politically would be, it's not really politics, but would be start the rookie, and then if he sucks, then you have the backup is the pro. I mean, that's probably the move.
Sure. I mean, look, I think they did what I would always try and do when developing a young quarterback, regardless of where he's drafted. They let him sit for a year to watch. He got some playing time in the very end of his rookie season. And now you're going to see what you have. I was Haskins, so many of these guys get rushed out before they're ready. And we've seen that all too often here in DC. And it bites them in the ass every time, I feel like.
Right.
I don't know if it's going to work out with Sam Howell, but he has a decent arm. He seems to have we'll see if he's got the right mindset when, it comes to the game itself. Because you can never see that in practice, I feel like. That thing that Taylor Heineke had, that just when he was on the field, that innate, intensity. You don't see that in practice.
And moxie for the game,
Yeah.
Now, there was something I saw was interesting today. I was curious if you noticed it when you were there. I saw someone post that Jahan Dotson has actually been kind of a little bit more of a focal point in the offense, because he's a much more polished route runner than Terry McLaurin is. And I spoke about that before when we drafted him and everything. It's the one thing that he is and always has been. He's been a technical route runner, a very good route runner. I was curious if you kind of noticed the same thing.
I didn't see that. Honestly, I'm trying to, other than in, the one-on-one drills, I don't remember them going to Dotson a whole lot in any of the pass plays we saw.
No.
Sometimes it just doesn't happen, I guess, when they're doing the 11-on-11 and all that stuff. But, I mean, look, he's a good player. I'm not going to pretend that's not just because it didn't happen that day,
If you're going to be at Penn State, you got to learn how to run, man.
Yeah.
There's no telling what people are going to do to you if you can't run away from them at Penn State.
Yeah, that is true.
It's not too soon for that, is it?
No.
This was years ago.
Yeah.
That was
Everyone's dead.
Ago.
Everyone's dead by now.
So. I don't think he is dead. I think what's his face is still in prison, I think.
Yeah, he's rotting away in there, as he should.
Is he?
Yeah, I don't think he died. What was his name, Dave?
Sandusky.
Yeah, there you go. Jerry. I think Jerry Sandusky's still in jail. They haven't offed him yet.
That you're right. Oh, his release date will be on my birthday in 2042.
I'm afraid he's not gonna be there for
it. Hopefully not. I don't think he's gonna make it.
He's already like 80, isn't he?
Yeah. It was like the second line, and when I Googled, is he alive? He is alive. He will be out in 2042. Oh, great. Watch your kids.
Lock up your daughters and your sons.
Well, no, get it, because by the time he's out, people who are kids will have kids. So watch your kids. It's a thinker. Overall, training camp really good. I think that the new ownership's done a lot of right things with this. They got to fix the parking situation.
What is the parking situation there? Is there a lot, or is it just park on the grass?
VIPs can park in the grass. If you're a regular schmo like I am, you have to park at the Dulles Town Center by the mall, by the abandoned movie theater or something like that. I don't really know if it's abandoned, but it's an old town center. And then they have buses, and it's like a 2-mile bus ride. And
What
it
would
wasn't
happen
bad
if you
getting
just ignored
in.
all that and just tried to park at the park anyway? What would happen? They
They
wouldn't
have
let you in?
security guys
Oh,
to
okay.
check and all that. But yeah, the thing about that stunk was trying to get out. Everyone's getting out at once, so it took me longer to wait for that shuttle
Mhm.
than it took me to drive home.
And probably took you a long time to leave too, would be my
That-
guess.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
just took forever to get out of there. Yeah, because it's like, all right, 20 people get on this shuttle, 50 people get on this shuttle, and you're just waiting.
An introvert's nightmare.
Yeah, in a crowded line with a bunch of
Exactly.
people you don't know. But yeah, it was cool, man. Going out there, it's not as nice as Richmond of a camp, of a location and all that stuff, but that's just me. I like to be able to go places and do things after I'm done, and they don't let you do that there. But I would say if you have a chance this year, you should definitely go. Maybe go on a weekday when it's less crowded and you can sit in the bleachers, because they built bleachers finally for everybody. So that's what I noticed on camp. Some other stuff we saw in camp this week with the team. Obviously, they've started wearing pads. That's a big thing because it means they're hitting a little more. Dave, you sent us that link that what is it? Good Morning Football? Is that the name of that show?
That's the NFL Network's morning show.
Yeah, they were out there today. Kay Adams or
no, Kay Adams isn't on Good Morning. She has her own show, Up and Adams now.
Oh, okay. But
yes,
she was
that's
out
what that
there.
is.
Her
Yeah,
show
she
is
was
called
out there.
Up in Adams.
Up and Adams.
Oh, Up and Adams. I thought you said
Yeah,
Up
and
in
at
Adams.
them.
That's an entirely different show. I mean,
But she was out there interviewing Sam Howell. He was very happy with Eric Bieniemy. It sounds like, right? Like that
Right.
sounded.
what's he gonna say though? Oh man, this guy really sucks.
Yeah. He hits me.
Take that with a grain of salt. Man, this guy stinks as an offensive coordinator.
That's the one thing I love about player interviews. I love Jahan Dotson, but it's like every time he's interviewed, he's always like, "Oh well, Sam Howell's the man. He's the guy. He's going to do something in this league." I'm like, what teammate's not going to say that about their quarterback?
I just frankly think my quarterback isn't that good.
Well, Terry McLaurin was a little more honest. He said, "We still haven't found the guy, but we're giving Sam a shot, and he's looking good."
Who said that?
Like Terry.
McLaurin.
He said something along those lines. It was a little more. We don't know what he is. Not he's going to be amazing.
Most players are savvy, and we've interviewed a lot of them. Most of them are savvy enough to not step on it, when they have questions like that.
Right. I'm trying to think if we ever had one who was a real dummy. I don't think we ever did.
I don't know. I don't remember any really dumb. There were some that were better than others, but I don't remember any like true, like really dumb guys.
No. And they're out there. I think no one wants to talk to them.
Oh, yeah. Of course they're out there.
Yeah. So, Dave, did you notice anything watching what was going on in training camp from afar? Anything stand out to you so far?
Well, I mean, I know it's beating a dead horse, and you mentioned it earlier, but at offensive line, man, you want this young quarterback to succeed, and you want to run an offense that's going to be effective. And you even mentioned all the short, intermediate plays are working because that's all that they can run with his offensive line. I mean, Mason Brooks, there's a lot of hype with him right now. He's been kind of manhandling in one-on-one drills and stuff like that. And, Chris Paul looks like he's developing well and everything. But the only problem is, man, every time I hear like John Keim or Lake Lewis or someone talk, it's Sam Howell is constantly having to roll out and duress. Now, the one thing I will say is they've noticed, and Lake Lewis talked about this, is that Sam Howell on the run is actually looked pretty good, you know, and he hasn't tried any of them crazy cross his body throws, because apparently they talk about they watch a lot of Kansas City Chief offense. I don't need to see Sam Howell starting to do throws that only Patrick Mahomes can make, because he starts making them, it's over, it's done.
And Mahomes does improvise a lot like that too.
Oh, he's the king of it, isn't he?
Yeah.
But he does it accurately. He's amazing when
that's why he's a Hall of Fame quality quarterback.
Absolutely. Right. So it's just the defense looks like it's set up to have a good year this year. The receiving core is good to really good. The running backs, we don't know exactly what they are, but they got some talent there. It's like everything is there to kind of make it a playoff push. Maybe not a playoff run, but a push to maybe make the playoffs. But that offensive line is so important. And every one of my articles that I talk about with them is they're statistically dead last in almost every category except for power runs and short yardage, third down runs of under 2 yards. Whoop-de-doo. Outside of that, they're terrible in every other category.
That's their strength right there is 2 yards.
Yeah, 2 yards.
And it really is an interesting thing to worry about because, and I've said this before, if you're building an offense every year, I've always thought the first thing you need to figure out is what is my line doing well, because that's going to be the backbone staple for the offense that year. And right now it's nothing.
Well, Ron Rivera has a weird sense of what an offensive line should be, and it's just that he doesn't care about it. That's the only thing I can conclude is he just really doesn't particularly care for it.
He doesn't know. He doesn't care. I think he's fixated on trying to rebuild his 85 Bears, and they didn't really have anything special on offense. They had that amazing defense.
The idea that I'm still can't get over the fact that the guy passed on Cody Mosh to draft another corner. I mean, that just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Well, see, even when you mentioned 85 Bears and you go back to even to the 2015 Panthers, those teams were so good because of defense, turnovers, and they won in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
You're absolutely right. They did it.
That's how they were built. And he comes here and it's like, okay, we'll get it. We'll build the secondary. We'll get the defensive line set, and got to have that Buffalo nickel. Let's bring in another receiver and everything else. And it's like, oh, and by the way, for like the last 4 years under Ron Rivera, they're the 32nd team in the NFL, bottom dead last in investment in the offensive line. Go figure.
Yeah. I saw who was it? Ross Tucker said they probably are he had them ranked in the last grouping. He did one of those cluster ranking things.
Yeah.
And he had them like 29th, 30 or something like that. It wasn't good.
It's well deserved. That's what happens when you do what Ron Rivera's done. If Ron gets fired, it's because of two things. He's completely botched the quarterback room, and he's completely botched the offensive line. Those two things are going to get him fired.
Yeah, I overall agree. The one I'll give a caveat on quarterback. It's not like there've been that many plays they could have made. I know
they could have moved up in the draft and drafted quarterback, and they didn't.
They could have.
Justin Fields, they could
have tried to develop Dwayne Haskins, and they didn't. I'm serious. You spent a first round.
You and I disagree about Haskins.
Look, but and I'm not saying Haskins belonged in the Hall of Fame or anything, but you had a guy who was a first round pick who had a very high quality arm. Maybe he needed some time. Anybody ever think of this? Time
Haskins,
to develop. He was a young guy. He hadn't played that much.
And his biggest thing was just maturity issues is all it was. I mean, the guy had a high IQ for the game. You saw that in Ohio State. He rarely made the same mistake twice in the same game. He adapted well. I mean, he wasn't highly mobile, but he had what they call functional mobile. I mean, he had everything.
He was young and immature, and he needed time, and the team just, flushed him right down the trash can, right down the toilet.
But, from what I saw when he was in the NFL, it didn't look like it was there.
He was on a lousy team. With
a
coach who didn't believe in him and no decent role models around him. I'm talking about player role models.
Right.
No wonder. Yeah. Look again. I use the Giants example with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones didn't look that good as a rookie. Washington would have benched his ass. I promise you they would have. The Giants
Yeah.
stuck with him through thick and thin, in spite of everybody telling him, questioning what Jones was. And look at him now. He's still not going to be Brett Favre or anything, but they have a solid franchise quarterback who they re-signed.
Yep.
I just didn't see the accuracy, and that to me is.
But he played. But Dwayne Haskins got like 5 minutes, and then he was.
He did. He did not get enough
it.
time to really. No. I'll give you that. Fair enough. Speaking of guys who should,
by the way, to him.
Yes, of course. Rest in peace.
Right.
With,
yeah.
That no one deserves what happened to him.
Right.
Of course. Let's change topics to something related. Unfortunately, Jamin Davis. What a dumbass. So here's a rule I have. If you are speeding and the amount you're speeding is more than the speed limit in almost everywhere in the country, like say going 69 miles an hour over the speed limit, he should go to jail for a little bit for this.
Would you like to hear the opinion of the guy who prosecuted?
Yeah, sure.
So I guess he was clocked at 114 and a 45, and that came on the heels of two other tickets for driving in the 80s, roughly in 265 mile per hour zones, I guess. I think that's what he got caught for. So most tickets like this will get pled down, and you'll end up on some sort of probation and whatnot.
Sure.
There are some, and that's probably what they were banking on, and it looks like that was. And then the judge rejected the plea bargain. It looks like some jurisdictions are abnormally tough on it, and I would say that if a 114 and a 45 landed on my desk, that would have been the one that I might have stuck to my guns on, because that is egregious,
Right.
and that's why they charge him with reckless driving, which is one step above an average speeding ticket. Remember that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he got like a few days in jail, probably.
Well, the plea agreement was 8 days in jail and a fine, I believe.
Well, so 8 days is going to turn into 4 days, probably. I mean, and when I say a few days, 10, 12, 15, I mean, I don't think it'll be more than that, realistically. Probably not. But I would say if it had, I didn't do speeding tickets a ton. I did a few of them when I was just a wee lad in law school. But that one I think would catch everybody's attention, even the most lenient prosecutor. Most lenient Soros prosecutor would.
Of course, I think everyone. I mean, and I did half jokingly say this in our chat. Virginia is famous for like cracking the whip hard on speeding, because they have nothing else to do in most of rural Virginia. So like all they do is just, catch people. But 114 and a 45 is absolutely
it's egregious behavior. It really is. I mean, that's why he got charged with reckless driving.
And the thing people were pointing out, he was there when
DeShazer Everett's girlfriend got killed.
The DeShazer Everett's girlfriend thing happened. He was there for that.
Yep. He was driving the other car.
You didn't learn a lesson? Like, come on.
And he's going to get an NFL suspension slapped on him for that too.
And that's the trick, right? And so let's assume I'm right, and he gets a couple weeks in jail. Now, first of all, county jail. He wouldn't go away to prison. It's not long enough. So he'd be in county jail, so whatever county it was in. You don't just go
County.
Loudoun County. Okay, you don't just go to jail immediately. They don't just drag you right from the courthouse straight to jail for something like that. You do for if you don't have bail and it's a murder case and that kind of thing. But for something like this, they're gonna assign him a date to show up. It's kind of like what the government, and I'm not trying to get political here, but this Archer guy just testified against the Biden family this past week, right? And DOJ, and again, this is another podcast, so I'm not trying to get into the politics of it here, but DOJ ordered him to report to prison. And why that was what was going on there is he got convicted of some like fraud or something, and they finally got around to assigning him a prison term, or saying you need to so that's what's going to happen to him. So the prosecutor or the defense attorney can argue for this and try to set it during like a bye week or, at the end of the season or something like that. But the NFL is not bound by any of it. The NFL, as Dave pointed out, their standard of proof is just they have reason to believe that he did something, and they don't have to necessarily wait for him to serve his persistent sentence. They don't have to make him suspense and serve concurrently. They could, the NFL could bench him for 3 or 4 games conceivably.
Oh, and I wouldn't be surprised because it's the personal conduct policy that they would be doing it on. And
right.
There's no ifs, and or buts that he did it at this point. If he's pleading guilty and all that
there's
stuff.
no question that he violated there's no question.
Yeah.
And and the worst part is that we were having such a clean off season with any kind of news, stuff like that. The tiny tyrant's gone, all that stuff. And so Jamin Davis is like, it's too quiet. Let's do something here.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is like the NFL always seems to be pretty slow in handing these sentences out. They take forever to investigate things. I don't know why it takes them so long for some of these cases. So who knows when it's going to happen, but I would anticipate he gets a couple games suspension.
Sure.
But I do think unless he's just got an unusually harsh judge, I do think they will work around the football season for him to serve his term. The courts would usually, if he's got a clean, I don't know if he has a clean record. If he has a clean record, they'll probably work with him.
Now I wonder if the same thing happened with Kamara will happen with him in terms of pushing those dates out. But then Kamara is so much more complicated anyway.
Well, Kamara's a totally
different
case.
case.
Kamara was a
that's a bad
case.
example. Never mind. Yeah, bad example.
Yeah. Now the question then becomes, of course, if he is suspended for, let's say, a month, 4 games.
I would 2 to 4 at most. I would say for this.
Washington linebacker, probably their thinnest position.
Just throw another linebacker out there, Alex. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Steve, I'm checking. I don't think we have one. I'm pretty sure we just don't have any linebackers. Which is amazing.
Khaleke Hudson.
Yeah, I know. Khaleke Hudson's a safety who plays linebacker. Let's be clear. I like Khaleke Hudson. I think that you could do some fun things with him if you were creative as a defense, and they're not. But, he should be doing little edge blitzes 5-10 times a game. That's what you draft him for. But he's not an every down guy.
I think realistically it would end up being David Mayo and Milo Eifler, which is like yikes.
Yeah.
Maybe
Mayo's
Cody Barton.
And they did sign that one free agent. Was that Eifler?
Cody Barton.
Barton.
Well, so the linebacker group is Cody Barton, David Mayo, Milo Eifler, Freud Gardner, Hudson, Harris Hudson. And then a couple of guys you're talking about. I had a couple of these guys listed as safety just from the lack of somewhere to put them. But there's a couple other guys in there who could kind of fit in, as like a hybrid kind of thing.
Ron does love his Buffalo nickels, man. Like, he's obsessed with these.
But that's not like an interior linebacker. The only ones they have on the roster are David Mayo and Cody Barton. And then Davis on the outside. So you're really looking at Eifler, Gardner.
Yeah.
And really that's it.
So I'm going to throw a name out there. A guy who's still a free agent, Rashaan Evans, who very highly drafted. He was a first-round pick, I think, wasn't he? Or he was a first or second.
I don't remember.
He played with Jonathan Allen at Alabama. He's 27. Last year, he had 86 tackles and 73 assists, and he's still a free agent. Like, we just need bodies if Davis could be out for any period of time. And
he would automatically be our third best linebacker in a heartbeat.
Yeah. He might be our second best linebacker in a heartbeat.
Oh, wait, he has a heartbeat. Yes, he would be.
I don't understand why they aren't. Like, if I saw what Jamin Davis was being, if you're telling me that the judge is throwing out this plea deal, which didn't sound favorable to him.
No, it sounded kind of what I would expect, to be honest.
Did it?
8, that's in the ballpark.
But then why would the judge have thrown it out just to?
Maybe the judge didn't think it. Maybe it's a harsh judge.
Yeah.
Maybe the judge sees that this NFL player and we need to set an example. Sometimes that happens, but
sure.
To get jail time fair enough. 114 and a 45, but like 8 days. I mean, there's a lot of cases like that go under the radar that happens to all the time.
Yeah. Well, I remember Jason Worth had something similar. The former national. He did about the same 100 miles an hour in a 50 or something like that. And he got a couple days like
and
that.
And Rashaan Evans, by the way, was a first-round pick in 2018.
He was a first-round pick.
Yeah.
I would be on the phone with him right now if I were the team. Like, you desperately need to have a plan B at this point at linebacker for a couple games. And who knows, maybe he actually is good, and you're like, oh, this whole having more than one decent linebacker thing could be useful. Let me try this, you know? It just blows my mind.
To be clear, I have absolutely no sympathy whatsoever for Jamin Davis.
Oh, no. I really don't.
Anybody.
It's so stupid. Like,
I don't think many people do anyway. He's definitely been getting ripped on social media for all this.
Yeah. Look,
Rightfully
we've all sped, or everyone's done it. Everyone's gotten tickets for it over there. But
of course.
I don't think any of us have ever done. Well, you might have done 114 once or twice in your younger days, Steve.
I absolutely 100% have done the 104, but never in a 45.
yeah, on a highway. Yeah.
I also have driven on the Autobahn in Germany, where it's legal too, but that's another story. Yeah.
Right.
That was a crazy drive right there. I was on there as well.
But look, I've driven over 100 miles an hour in the United States.
Yeah, sure.
But not like that. Not in a 45 mile an hour on a freeway,
No, and look, I've broken that 3-digit marker even in my little Mazda 2, and like you don't even realize it sometimes. No, but you know those videos that of like NASCAR drivers
when they're shaking around.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
I was like my first car I ever had in my Chevy Cavalier '86. I got up to about 66, 70 miles an hour, and I think it's like, it's like, oh my goodness.
but the context again for Davis isn't.
Yeah.
It's you got 2 other tickets, and by the way, somebody died in a car accident that you were involved in.
Right.
At some level, you were involved in. You were there and driving.
Right.
That ought to. I don't know what's going through your head.
You did not learn the lesson of, oh shit, this is serious. That Yeah. It was a very expensive lesson that somebody else paid, and he didn't learn from it.
So I'm rooting for him to get suspended for a couple games at least, because I think he learns it. I mean, the fans probably all upset about it and probably defended him, I'm sure, but
not really.
No,
not really.
Good.
No, I didn't see anyone defending it.
In fact, some even make mentions that this was the character guy that Ron Rivera wanted so bad.
Right. That he overdrafted.
That he overdrafted. Yeah.
Yet another bust.
Yeah. It just is frustrating. It really is. So let's see. What else do we got on the list of things we got to talk about today?
We got to get to the special teams position group breakdown at some point.
We do have to do that. Oh, darn. I have to talk about special team. Guys, here's the thing. Steve had let me write the special teams breakdown.
It was a weak moment. I should have realized this was going to happen.
I'm sure it's very telling and revealing about Tress Way.
I was going to skip it, to be honest, and we really need another week. And, okay, we'll stick special teams in here. Alex
I limited Tress Way to 2 paragraphs in my actual breakdown.
You still have that jersey, the Tress Way jersey?
I have a picture of me in the Tress Way jersey.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have a good picture of me in the Tress Way jersey. Like, I don't have like a full body. You just see the very top of the 5. But yes, I have that picture in there. So, okay, quick breakdown of the obvious special teams players. Tress Way, possibly the greatest punter in the league. You can make the argument that he is just his last year, his punts inside the 20 were up to 44.6%, with only 6% being touchbacks. Not his best season, but it's one of his better seasons doing that. Of course, like 5 years ago, he had like an all-star season where he had no punts for touchbacks and set a record with half of them being inside the 20. But he had a great year last year. I don't think he shows any signs of slowing down Tress Way. Like, he's probably got another 5 or 6 good seasons left in him, honestly, if you look at how he's been playing and just his physical conditioning these days.
Well, and punter's not exactly something that wears bodies out either.
No, right. Guys play into their late 30s, 40s.
It's pretty, pretty routine.
Yeah.
Right now, Ron Rivera is wasting his prime, that's for sure.
Yeah. I don't think you can ever waste a punter's prime. They're still just a punter.
Is it kind of like having, like a supermodel, like Cindy Crawford in her prime at the local mall instead of on the big stage?
It kind of is.
That's what they're doing to Tressway.
She's got a 10-year contract where she has to do cereal commercials. It's just a total
exactly.
waste.
Maybe Cindy Crawford's too old a reference, but you get the point.
I don't think so. Not for any of us. So the obviously Cheeseman's the snapper. We have Joey Sly as the kicker, and then they brought in Michael Bagley to be competition in the kicking game. Now,
before you go on, I like to pat myself on the back for Cameron Cheeseman, because last year I was the one that found that pointed him out, because I cold called one of these snapper coaches and said, hey,
the world's most elite snapper coach. Yep.
Yeah, I did. I just cold called him. I think I DM'd him on Twitter, and he sent me a cell phone number, so I just picked up phone. But he gave me 3 names, and Cheeseman was one of the 3.
Yeah, I remember that very well, because that was one of those more interesting. And a lot of people still, and I agree with this, people still complain that we traded up to get him.
I knew it, because after talking to that guy, the other guy who he was super hot on, I can't remember his name, got drafted, and that was when they made the trade. And so I knew the guy was 100% right. That guy. I'm trying to find him because I can't. I'll have to give him a shot. But continue.
All right, so I do think this kicking competition is a legitimate competition here between Bagley and Sly. And I say that because Sly's numbers are very average for the most part. 83% is his career average, and that's what he was at last year when it came to field goals. And that's right in the middle, by the way, of the league. People will point, it's low overall, but everyone was between 74 and 94% on kicking field goals last year. So 83 is right in the center. But he was second to last when it came to extra points. He was really noticeably bad. So they brought in a guy here, Bagley, whose careers on extra points, 96.9% of all his extra point kicks. His problem is he's kind of like our old buddy Cobra Kai Forbath, where he has just a terrible leg from range. You get him under 40, he's pretty solid. After that, 76% for his career from 40 to 49, and 38% beyond 50. Not a good long range kicker. So it's going to be an interesting competition. If he's gotten his legs stronger and he can hit those long bombs reliably, I wouldn't be surprised if this Bagley guy could beat Joey Sly. But that's going to be the question is his leg stronger now, and can he make those kind of, because you can't, it's the NFL. You can't be like, well, we're good from 35 on in. That's about it. That doesn't exist when it comes to special teams kicking games. But I will be curious to watch, because they did do some of this competition when, I was at training camp. And they were both hitting them. They were snapping the ball from the 35, which would be a 52-yard field goal, and they were both hitting those pretty well. So. Well,
I mean, that's in practice.
It is in practice
without a rush.
No.
Also, there's no telling how many steps they had. They were taking. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way,
this was a simulated, kick. So they did have defenders.
The long snapper coach was Chris Rubio. He's at the Chris Rubio. If that interests you on Twitter, that's the guy I talked to. But just for context's sake, Dustin Hopkins last year. For those of you wondering what happened to Dustin Hopkins, he actually hurt his hamstring, and so he was only played 5 games, but he was 9 for 10 in field goals and 12 for 12 in extra points.
Yeah, Hopkins was a reliable.
Yep, he was.
Look, people have a history of blaming kickers for losses. One reason why I thought they didn't bring in competition right away with Joey Sly, even though he missed 5 field goals, 4 of them were in wins, 1 was in the tie. So, like, he cost us a tie, I guess, technically, but he didn't lose any games for the team. So, like, that, that psychology plays big in how people think about their kickers.
I always thought he got a bit of a raw deal in terms from the way the fans thought of him.
Are you talking about
he was a pretty
Hopkins?
good. I'm talking about Hopkins. He was a pretty good
I
kicker.
agree.
Yeah.
I think that's true about a lot of our past kickers. I thought that about Forbath too. That he was kind of given a raw deal by fans for a lot of.
There's been such a parade of kickers through this franchise, other than Hopkins, that I just can't even remember them all.
I just think that extra point that he missed in that game in London is what really soured people over.
People forget that the wind in that stadium was atrocious, and that the Bengals kicker also missed an extra point. Does anybody people? It's like selective memory,
Well, that's his fan base. Even I fall in that trap once in a while.
Let's be honest. We just talked this show. We're honest. The truth was, it was a bad day. The Bengals kicker also missed one.
And people were saying throughout the whole game how bad that turf was that they were playing on.
But I think you're right. I mean, they do hold it against him still to this day.
Oh yeah, they definitely do. With Hopkins, they absolutely hold that stupid one thing against them. But all right. So those are your big guys, the obvious names when you talk about special teams. I think the interesting thing is going to be who gets this kick return, punt return job this year, because I honestly have no idea who it's going to be. I don't know if it'll be this Casimir Allen kid. I thought he played pretty well. Gibson, they're talking about, they want him to, get another shot at it this year. They're trying to find, roles for him. I hope it's not Dax Milne. He was okay on punts last season. His average was 7.8 yards per return, which is not great, but not terrible. They stupidly let go of the guy from the year before who we had.
That was the guy they should have kept.
Carter.
There you go. That was the guy that should have kept.
I was scanning my own article. Like, I know I wrote his name down here somewhere. But yeah, they let Carter walk for idiotic reasons, and then they brought in Alex Erickson, if you guys can remember him.
I do.
And the crazy part is, he signed for $1.1 million for the Chargers.
Nothing.
I'm like, seriously?
Unless somebody spit on his mom when she was visiting or something, I don't see what.
Hopefully, nobody spat on his mom.
Well, I don't. Why else would he want to get out of here so bad?
Wait, who would want to stay?
That's fair.
Seriously, I mean, let's not have a diluted sense of self-worth here. This has been a horrible franchise. I mean, granted, the new owner, dawn of the new day or whatever, but nobody wanted to be here.
Nobody.
You kidding me?
Yeah, I know. So I will see who it is. I will say from what I saw in camp, I would give Casimir Allen a real shot. And I didn't write that in my article because I wrote this article before I went there, but I will be very interested to see what he does in preseason.
Would anybody care to hear what DeAndre Carter did last year?
Sure. What were his
numbers? He was with the Chargers. 29 punt returns for 339 yards, average of 11.7 yards per return. So significantly better than Milne in that regard. Kickoffs not as good. 26 kickoff returns, 497 yards, long of 33, average 19.1.
Yeah.
But that's kind of average. But the punt returns was consistently better.
If you're averaging anything over 10 in punt returns, that's very good. That's a very good year. You're saving your offense a whole first down at that point. That's a win.
Right.
So the last thing I'll say about special teams, it'll be interesting to see who else is their big special teams players, because Jeremy Reeves is coming back and he made the Pro Bowl last year from playing special teams. That was a great moment for we all saw that video with Ron Rivera.
I watched that video 4 times in a row.
It's so fantastic. Because
fans love that because, you saw a guy who was genuinely appreciative. He's not some jerk who came out of, Alabama or wherever and feels it like Chase Young. He kind of rubs me wrong because he just acts entitled. But Jeremy Reaves has scraped up from the bottom. He looks humble. He was genuinely moved by it. It was just such a great moment, I thought.
Yep, I agree.
So the last thing, and this is what's concerning to me, when you look at who the big special teams players were last year, the other contributors, most of the guys from last season's team are hurt or left already. Because the number one guys were Cam Sims, John Bostic, they're gone. Shaka Tony's suspended. Amari Rogers is hurt. And then like some of your other key guys are probably on the cusp, like F.A. Obata, Miller Eifler. These were like your guys who took the most snaps on special teams. There's not a guarantee any of those guys will be back. So there's going to be a big changing of the guard in that stuff, other than Jeremy Reaves. So that's a little thing to watch for is who these new young players is going to take those roles.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's something to watch for.
Yeah.
Yep.
Along with the obvious stuff like punt returner, kick returner.
Well, sure. And the kicker battle, I mean, I don't know anything. What's the guy's name? Bagley. Bagley.
He has a nickname of Money Bagley or Money Bagger or something. I don't know. It's stupid.
And that means precisely
kickers should not have nicknames. Unless it's like Captain Clutch, don't have a nickname as a kicker.
Captain Clutch? Is there somebody with that name out there?
Sure, I'm sure somebody's got it. Some of these like those, Adam Vinatieri must have had a kicking nickname or something, right? Like some of those famous ones.
Some of those like, South American soccer player types. Some of them probably had some sort of nickname, you would think.
Oh yeah, from their soccer days, and they just this is my nickname. Yeah.
Right, but nobody understands it because none of us speaks their language.
Right. There was a guy who used to kick with only a sock. I can't remember his name. I called him guy who kicks with a sock.
Well, there's been some barefoot kickers too. I'd like to, since we have a couple minutes here.
Yeah.
You mentioned Shaka Tony. If everybody recalls, he got suspended for gambling. I just like to point. This is probably more of an IJB topic, but I'd like to point out that the NFL has suspended a bunch of players for gambling this year. Has anybody noticed this?
Yes.
I don't know why. I have a hypothesis, which is an untested, it's not a theory till it's tested, okay? I haven't looked into it. But my hypothesis here is that because the NFL is jumping in to bed at a much higher rate with institutions of gambling institutions, and then they park the Raiders in Las Vegas on top of that, it makes me wonder if they are paying more attention to players gambling on the NFL than they did before. Because all these guys are gambling on football. And we just haven't seen suspensions for this thing at a rate as we've seen this offseason. So I like to see if it continues, and I like to see if some of the details about what some of these guys have done, because it's just a point of order for me that it's in the back of my head is interesting to note.
Well, yeah, I think they're just jumping ahead and getting the message out there now saying, hey, listen, as we incorporate more and more into this whole gambling scene, just to let you know that we are watching, we're going to continue watching, and they're making an example of some of these players early just to get in their minds going forward. So,
I think you're 100% right. I agree with I endorse all of that.
Now, did you see the thing about the Broncos? Yamaya.
Are you using any of the English words, Alex?
Eyoma. That's the guy's name.
Iyamo. That guy. The guy with the weird name.
Who he was suspended by the NFL. They're talking about like he made over 800 wagers on games he played in, both in college and in the pros. $21,000 wagered. Like they're talking that there might be some prison time involved now with him.
Wow.
Well, I mean, you have to have evidence of that in an indictment to get prison time, okay?
Sure.
And by the way, $21,000 and 800 bets is not that much.
No, but there's a I'm glancing at the story. There is a
I thought you were
prosecutor
saying
involved at this
21,000 for each bet.
That would be a lot of money.
Betting 21,000 each bet.
No. Well,
Like,
first off, this is stuff he did in college. I know college players get paid under the table, but
okay.
yeah. Here, I'll share the story with you because I just saw it like when I was glancing at Twitter earlier.
Oh wow, this is a tough name, isn't it?
Yes. Uzakir.
Yoma Uwazakiri. That's what I'm going with.
Uwazakiri. There you go.
We'll go with
Yoma Uwazakiri. Okay, so this says, okay, I saw you, I had already clicked through the Wall Street Journal, Alex.
Okay.
Oh, shoot, and it cut me off because I'm not we're going to have to go to Alex's story. I'm
Which
not
is
a
on your least
subscriber.
favorite site. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not a subscriber to the Wall Street Journal because it's too expensive, and I'm cheap.
Yep. I have that. That's a whole nother show.
What, the Wall Street Journal?
No. My theories on paywalls in news and how it's led to mass disinformation in our political and social discourse. But that's a whole nother show.
That's like I read IJB, and now my computer has frozen up.
So regardless, they're like when it comes to bad gambling, I think this guy might be the poster child right now. Because if prosecutors are involved, that's not good.
Okay, it opened here now. Okay.
Yeah.
So this says he was suspended indefinitely.
Right.
He's now being investigated. He's in a criminal gambling probe. Whoops. What the
probes?
Hell
probes are never fun. We were talking about that with me going to training camp earlier.
Yeah, Alex got probed by the security person. Okay, so it says this is in Iowa. Prosecutors in Iowa. Right. He had a FanDuel account where he made 801 wagers for over $21,000.
Yeah.
Prosecutors say Uwazurki bet on 4 Broncos games for which he's inactive, as well as the Broncos December 18th game in which he played.
Yeah.
Now, so I guess it's a violation. Apparently, this type of gambling is not legal in Iowa because Iowa prosecutors are looking to prosecute him for this.
Right.
Because not every state has legalized gambling.
Right. Correct.
So that's one to watch. That's a good topic. We'll keep an eye on him.
You should keep an eye on that for the other show. Probably more. Yeah. So last thing we'll talk about here, because it has been definitely making the rounds on social media. Some fans have started, in coordination with a Native American group, a name change petition to get the name changed back to the Washington Redskins. Last I saw it was about 50,000 signatures, or close to that. If not, they might have gone over by now or by the time that people are listening. So, which is a lot. That's a lot of signatures. I don't care how many signatures. It's not going to happen unless those signatures include Nike and FedEx and Pepsi and whoever else that sponsors the NFL right now. I don't see the name ever changing back still.
Dave, you want to go first?
Well, it's just over 37,000 names right now. The goal was reset to 50,000, so they're not
okay.
At
that's
50,
what I saw.
000
The goal
yet.
is set to 50.
Yes, the goal is set to 50, and one of the sites that are pushing this is Native Guardian on Twitter.
Right.
And there were some people kind of in the beginning when they were coming around were questioning if it was just a fan that made up that site, but that site does seem to has a lot of ties with the Native American culture, and you know, it's run by Native Americans and so forth. 100% sure I'm not on that, but
well, I saw an interview that I believe was one of the guys involved with that site, and he looked Native American. So I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt and assume it's legit.
Right.
You know.
And but I like today I had an interesting conversation back for some. What people need to understand is there was a period of time, yes, where Redskins was used as a slur, yes, in terms for the younger generations because of the whole scalping and so forth and whatever. But the origins was never off that scalping. The origins was never by the white man.
That word has a history that is complicated at times. We can say that it was positive and it was negative at different times in history. That, there are lots of words we used for other people that you could say that about too.
I think a lot of like a lot of these Native American organizations, one of their biggest problems is that there's a lack of education on the name.
Sure.
You have a culture right now that's driven by what some people say are your white liberals, just a political statements from the government or whatever it is, whatever category it is that's doing all this, or whatever you hand it off to. I think some of the biggest issues that they have is that the education of the name itself has gotten twisted. It's gotten wrong. And you have these groups that are trying to re-educate, especially their younger generations that look at it as a slur, as, we're not a mascot or whatever, and understand what the true heritage of the name was. And people want to go, well, you had a racist owner that brought it in. He was a racist owner. He was a piece of crap. I get all that. I understand all that. But he also had a very positive relationships with Native American culture. And he had, if I recall correctly, like 12 Native Americans on the team. He had a Native American coach. He had relationships with Native Americans, a name that was changed. I know the article said he didn't change the name of the Redskins because of the head coach, but he did have a respect for Native Americans, although he was a piece of human garbage when it came to African Americans and so forth, and how he treated them and how he spoke about them.
Mm-hmm.
And see, and both can be true. And
so all of this is really cute.
Well, I didn't get. Well, go ahead. Steve.
See, the thing is, I'm all for it. Obviously I've said it repeatedly. I love the name Redskins. This is a waste of time. Okay. I get where they're coming from. I get where you're coming from. I agree with what you're saying. You're basically saying there's a history to this thing that in the past it doesn't necessarily match up for what the name actually means. And I think there's a significant number of polling that was done that shows you can find more polls that shows Native Americans weren't offended by it than those that were. And the ones that were this really kind of small group of loud, do-getters. But
and you're about ready to get to the point that I was going to make, but it's a perfect continuation.
In the history of petitions throughout the recorded human history, there's been about 3 of them that have actually mattered. Okay, and this is going to do nothing. I might even sign the thing. Okay, I haven't read it yet, but I know I'm aware of its existence, but I haven't looked at it. I might even sign it, but it will matter zero. I promise you, it will matter zero, because this is.
You're right.
And this is about marketing and the people who control marketing in this country. This goes back to things like ESG and, all this. And it's another podcast. I don't want to get on too much of a tangent here. But those folks who control commerce today will never allow this to happen. And the NFL is a part of this. And so it's a complete waste of time. Okay. Sign it if you want. Again, I may sign it. But there's 0.0% chance that this is going to happen. Not one little tiny sliver of a chance. Zero.
I think the one aspect of what they might be trying to get to, I think they know as well that name's not going to come back. I know the name's not going to come back. You're not going to have Dan Snyder leave, and then all of a sudden you're going to just bring controversy in behind this name. I think one of the targets is that we would still love to have this team represent Native Americans in one way or another, whether you go with a name like Warriors or whatever it is, or you make some sort of deal like the Florida State did with the Seminole tribe, whatever, something that ties.
That's never going to happen.
Well, no, I get that, and I agree with you, but I think that's what they would like to see happen, although it's just not going to happen, unfortunately.
I'm all for it. But it's a waste of time.
There was a period early on in that whole debate, back when Dan Snyder was, pounding his feet and all that stuff.
Pounding his size 6 shoes against the floor.
Yeah, exactly. I do remember the head of the
feet aren't that big.
he puts padding in. But the head of the Native American History Museum in D.C. said something along the lines of, if they would change the name to something like the Washington Americans and they kept the imagery and you kept it positive, then they wouldn't have had a problem with it. Like there was a time when there could have been that negotiation. Unfortunately, I think that passed because Dan Snyder was Dan Snyder.
It's over, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. I mean,
over.
they can come up with a better name than the C words, but it's just the Native American thing is never coming back. This poll is a waste of time. Nothing's going to happen with it. Again, nobody cares about polls. No, zero companies care about poll. I can promise you. Again, I was being facetious, obviously, but polls almost never do anything.
Petitions, not polls.
Sorry, I didn't.
Petitions. Just to make sure people know. Companies actually care way too much.
Sorry,
about
I meant petitions. Petitions do no good. They do absolutely nothing. There were millions of people who signed a petition to get HBO to remake the end of Game of Thrones, and obviously it went absolutely nowhere because that's never going to happen, and this is never going to happen either.
Well, that's one that should have happened.
I agree, it was terrible, but that's not the point. The point is,
we did get the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, and that one worked out.
Oh, yeah, that was a beautiful cut. Yeah, that was. I enjoyed that one.
It was good.
Superhero movies. Oh Lord.
I understand your hatred for them, but that was a
superhero movies.
Yeah, it was a good fix. I'm trying to think of any other petitions that there was one petition in 1776 that worked out.
Which one?
One in 1776.
Okay, that really wasn't a petition. That was the Declaration of Independence. That's different.
It's kind of a petition. Everyone signed it. It's a petition. They didn't have petitions yet.
Petitions just don't. Marketing is done on a more complicated basis. And again, in today's world, you have a select group of people that is controlling a large bit of the marketing that's going on, and they have an agenda, and that agenda does not include traditional values at all, much less things like Redskins.
Right. Now, the one thing I will add though is that the ownership group they obviously have not been avoiding the name Redskins. They have not even made an attempt to even insinuate that they're not going to change the current name. I really won't be surprised if this name gets, and we talked about this last show, that this name is going to get under serious consideration on being changed. And especially with the history that Harris has, I could see it pulling to what the history of the Redskins had and so forth, non-Native American, of course.
I wouldn't be surprised by anything. Look, and I saw some article about that, Dave, how they're not shying away from using it, and some, it was probably PFT was complaining about it. I know. But look, that was the team's name. If they're using that in the past tense, it's perfectly, that was the name of the team that won the Super Bowls. Deal with it. Just move on with your lives. It was the past, and it should be remembered appropriately. So that should wrap up this show. Let's wrap up on that note about history and keeping history accurate and truthful.
Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yep. Even the ugly parts. That's the important thing.
Yep.
So, always.
Yes. Yep. Because you got to learn. And that wraps up the show, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other.
Or don't. Who cares?
Or don't. Who cares? Yeah.
Uh,
Later.
Take it easy.